right, guys, welcome back to Of Stone and Clay, episode 105. Today we are here with Jeffrey Mann. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Jeffrey is someone that I don't know at all, so I'm excited to get to know you. I've listened to a little bit of your podcast, Man on the Mic, and have more, looked at your reels and your social media, and yeah, I just love your energy and what you talk about. And so I wanted to kind of dive a little deeper into, the man behind the mic, I guess.
Awesome.
You talk a lot about, a lot of your areas of focus are, fitness, finances, I guess. I was going to say wealth.
I would say, so my 4 pillars are faith, fitness, family, finances.
Okay, awesome.
It's kind of what I build and then build out from there.
Awesome, yeah. So I would probably want to talk a little bit more about just Jeffrey. Who's Jeffrey?
Awesome.
And we'll talk on some other things. But tell me a little bit about your podcast, why you wanted to start that, what was sort of the beginning stages of that.
So for me, working in the space of public relations, the past few years, I realized I was meeting really cool people and having these awesome experiences and these stories being shared. And I was like, why am I not sharing this with other people?
Yeah.
And so kind of sat down and said, you know what, I want to do a podcast. And that initial step to actually start it, I kept putting it off. And then finally I sat down and I'm like, okay, let me come up with a logo, idea, and just run with it.
Right.
And so what I initially started with is just doing content with people. We'd sit down and react to videos or just talk about things, and then we'd create shorts and use that for social media. And then I was like, okay, let's start having longer conversations, because in a short frame, you can't really dive deep.
Right.
And I'm like, we'd start talking about something and I have to cut them off. And I'm like, let's get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I thought is, what if we had conversations that were authentic, but no rules?
Yeah.
Nothing's off limits. We have to dig deep. And so that's kind of where I got started. And so started to talk to people that I know, reaching out and just having great conversations.
Yeah. How long have you been doing it now?
It's been probably 3 or 4 months.
Cool.
And so started a whole new Instagram account from scratch. My old one got hacked. So it's and it's been crazy because my old Instagram, I probably had 2,000 followers.
Yeah.
And with this new one, I'm averaging 1,000 new followers a week. And so the cool thing for me is getting stopped at like the gym or the grocery store. Hey, I saw your content or love your content. Keep doing it. And so I just build on that and just keep, wanting to do more and more. And the struggle of getting burnt out. And
sure,
you have those weeks where you're like, okay, I need a break.
Yeah.
And then you dive right back in.
Right. That's cool, man. So what has been your favorite part about podcasting and doing that new format?
I think it's the conversations
Yeah.
and the questions. Every podcast I do, every podcast I go on, I get new ideas. And for me, it's been, how would I explain it? It's been a journey. Because I think the first few ones that you do, you're kind of just, you're reading off a script, or you think the conversation should go a certain way.
Yeah.
And I've learned to, wherever the conversation goes, I let it roll that way.
Right.
And even if I plan to hit these topics, I'm like, this is really good. Let's just keep it rolling that way.
Yeah. I think the best episodes are the ones where both people are being really present.
Yeah.
And they're not overly concerned about where do we want this to go? Like, what clips can we get?
Exactly.
But yeah, I think if two people have an authentic, loving, mindful conversation, like, you're going to find good bits for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
100%.
So tell me a little bit about your beginning stages. I know you were adopted into a white family in Idaho, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen This Is Us, the show?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like Randall, his story. He was adopted into a white family. So tell me a little bit about, what that's like being adopted. Do you feel like growing up, how old were you when you were adopted?
So I was 3 weeks.
Okay, so you have no memory of anything before that.
It's actually, I got a wild story. So I was born in Prince George's County in Maryland, adopted at 3 weeks to Boise, Idaho. I've moved to Africa 3 different times. So when I was 7, we moved to Zimbabwe. My dad was doing humanitarian work. Moved back to Idaho, went to middle school. And then 8th grade year, my dad was called as the LDS mission president. So moved to South Africa for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Moved back to Idaho, graduated high school, came down and did a semester at Utah Valley, and then went on my own LDS mission to Ghana, West Africa.
Oh, wow.
So moved back there.
So you had to, especially growing up, it must have felt like Did it feel kind of like you were at home in Africa,
So
or were you so used to America and white culture?
so for me, there's two extremes. So being in Idaho,
Hmm.
obviously, there's not a lot of kids that look like you.
Yeah,
The culture's different. I mean, even just finding a barbershop
yeah,
instead of going to like Fantastic Sam's or Great Clips
yeah,
where they don't know how to cut your hair. But then moving to Africa, the struggle was we looked like the people, but we didn't speak the
yeah.
languages and we didn't understand the culture.
Right.
I remember when we moved to South Africa. I mean, we did stuff like play Xbox,
Uh-huh.
and the local black kids were not doing that,
Right.
but the white kids there did.
Okay.
And so we moved into a culture where we may look like one of the people, but we resonated with the other people.
Mm.
And so that was the other dilemma of, Africa would be like, oh, you're going back there. There's black people everywhere. But we don't understand the culture. I mean, I could go back now and I think I'd be fine.
Sure. Yeah.
But just not knowing anything.
Yeah.
And so that was different. And that was a shift for us. And so it's kind of been like my whole life, I've kind of been different from the people I'm around.
Yeah.
And, for years I hated it.
Uh-huh.
It was annoying, but I've learned to embrace it and love it because I'm like, it gives you such a chance to meet so many different people, but also show people who you are.
Yeah, because you stand out,
Yeah.
whether you want to or not.
Yeah, exactly. I tell people, I said, I'm going to wake up black and I'm going to go to bed black.
Yeah.
Unless something crazy happens.
Dang, I'd love to wake up black just once. Just give it a try.
Just one day. Well, I always tell my friends, I'm like, if I woke up white, I wonder what I would do for a day or what I would try.
Yeah.
So many different things.
So when you're like a teenager and you're starting to kind of figure out life a little bit more, was there some sort of racial dysmorphia where you're a little confused about your identity and where you belong?
My parents did a really good job of immersing us in the culture.
Uh-huh.
They did a lot of stuff for Martin Luther King Day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, taking us to Africa
Yeah.
helped. I had a friend growing up whose dad played in the NFL.
Did you have other black siblings?
So I have a younger brother, so it's kind of crazy. It's my twin brother. He lives with me.
Uh-huh.
I'm 3 hours older, but we're twins only by adoption.
Oh, okay.
So he was born in, let's see, where was he born? It's going to destroy me. He's born in Atlanta, Covington, Georgia.
Uh-huh.
And so we were born the same time. Our parents picked us up. And so I've always grown up with this twin brother.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of being black, we're nothing alike.
Yeah.
But we've lived together for years now. And I went to Utah Valley. He went to Utah State. And so grew up with him. And then my parents made it an effort to different minority kids in the community. They'd have them over and pool parties or hang out or whatever it is. And then my mom did a lot of stuff in the schools to talk about and promote black culture and everything that way. And so my parents did a really good job, I think, on helping immerse us in that. But there was still stuff that they couldn't teach us.
Sure.
And so I had a buddy whose dad played in the NFL, and he's the one who introduced us to like the barbershop and the culture that way, and the difference when you get an actual haircut that fits you.
Yeah.
And so that for me was a huge help. But it was difficult. I mean, it's Idaho.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
Boise, Idaho. But in hindsight, I'm like, all the experiences I've had, I wouldn't change for anything.
Yeah. Was there any like racial things that were hard growing up?
So
Like,
the high school I went to was small town, graduating class of 75.
yeah.
I think I was the only black student at the time.
Yeah.
And so that had its challenges whether it was people in KKK robe showing up to the school. My senior year, they drew me hanging from trees in my textbooks.
Wow.
And, different experiences that way. And, it had its balancings. You had the negatives, but also you had the fun side. I remember playing football, and people, all they would hold when I would run the ball was a black poster board.
Oh gosh.
And you would just see, as I ran, you would just see the student section holding that
That's
over.
crazy. A whole student section. Wow.
And so, it has its pros and its cons. But that was Idaho at the time.
What was when you saw stuff or interacted with that in high school, what was your reaction? Was it anger? Was it
It was anger.
Yeah,
Yeah,
were you jacked and
I wasn't. That actually is what led to me to kind of commit to the gym.
okay.
Was these experiences. I'm like, if I turn my body into a weapon,
Uh-huh.
no one's going to approach me or try anything.
Yeah.
And there was little instances like at the mall, my dad would see like the security guy follow us around, and they don't know that's my dad.
Yeah.
But he's witnessing that happen. I remember my brother got a Mustang in high school. His first car. We're driving back home, and a cop followed us into the neighborhood. We pull up in the driveway. My dad walks out, and then the cop drives off. So there was all those little things like that.
Yeah.
And was it annoying? Yes.
Sure.
Did it impact me? Yes. at my age now, I can look back and I'm like, I'm so grateful for those experiences. I'm grateful I never got violent with them.
Right.
Because now I can go back and people are like, well, he didn't fight. He didn't do this.
Yeah.
The hardest thing for me is I remember looking at those textbooks. They have me hanging from a tree drawn in it. And I go and I slam it in the office. And, the counselor said, what's the problem? And I'm like, look at this. And so the cops came in. Not to deal with the textbooks, but they followed me around the next few classes to make sure I didn't hit anybody.
Oh gosh.
Or I didn't get violent.
Yeah.
And so, little things like that
Yeah.
Can trigger a person.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like for you, this is a complicated question, but do you feel like that, like for instance, those officers, do you feel like that's outward racism, or do you think it's just ignorance and a product of a broken culture?
For me, and I was just talking to a buddy about this. I think, especially like living here in Utah, a lot of it I don't think is racism. It's just ignorance
and just lack of exposure.
Yeah, they don't know, they don't understand, and they just see stuff on TV or Netflix or whatever show they've seen. That's what's ingrained in their mind, and so it's a learning curve for them.
Yeah, like I'm sure there's certain parts of Africa that like when white people go there, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like people aren't used to them, and so they stare.
Yeah.
They mention them everywhere they go. Like I served my LDS mission in Brazil.
Okay.
And I remember kids would they'd see my arm hair and they'd want to play with it because it was just new and it was blonde and it was,
Yeah.
And I was taller than everyone. And so I remember little kids would they'd look at my feet and grab my feet while I was sitting down. Just little things like that. But it never crossed my mind that, oh, this is racist. Or these kids are prejudiced. It was just new to them.
Yeah, new, different. I mean, on my LDS mission, I always wanted to have a white companion because I knew people would stop and want to talk to us, and it would be a way to open the door versus, two black companions. We don't have the same leverage, I guess.
Yeah. What about dating? Do you feel more comfortable with a black woman?
So it's kind of crazy. I've dated 2 black women, I guess half black, half white. One I've kind of dated on and off for almost 8 years now. But mainly, I guess I'm a product of where I find myself. And so mainly it's been white women being in Utah County.
Yeah. So, so you don't feel like you have a preference?
I actually prefer probably white women. There's probably not a lot of black women. If I was up in Salt Lake, it'd be different.
Right.
But also a lot of my friends think I'm weird because I could date a girl in her 20s to a lady in her late 50s.
Late 50s is wild.
Yeah, I've dated. So I'm 31. The oldest I've dated is 27 years older than me.
Oh, that's I gotta tip my beanie to you. That's impressive. That's cool, man. I like that you're just open-minded. Right. So for you, when it comes to dating, what are the most important things you're looking for? Obviously, age is not.
So age is not. Honestly, my 3 things would probably be fitness. They don't have to be obsessed with the gym.
Sure.
But I want them to take care of themselves. Eat right. I think number 2 would have to be faith. And it doesn't have to. If they're not the same religion as me, that's okay. But I want them to have some type of faith because that's where your values are set. Right. And so if our values line up some way, then I'm comfortable that way.
Sure.
And I think the last thing is they have to be ready to be spontaneous. In my field where I work, the amount of travel that I do, different people I'm connecting, they got to be able to move on their feet because they may be at a dinner or at a mastermind or something where I'm networking and stuff, and they have to be able to hold their own and hold a conversation.
Sure, yeah. What about personality for you? What's when you really click with a girl, what are some personality traits that are important for you?
Just fun, outgoing, full of energy.
Yeah.
I love a girl that likes to travel and go see things. But also, this is kind of different. I love girls that are also independent. So if it's the weekend, she has her friends that she can go hang out with.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be us together 24/7.
Yeah.
And I dated a girl once and I went to watch Super Bowl with my buddies. And I'm like, hey, listen, the girls and the wives are going to go do their own thing. You're welcome to go join them. But her big thing is, I want to be with you. And I'm like, well, this is guys' nights.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place. And so my big thing is, can they do their own thing?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to make an assumption that at your age, in the demographic you live in, you've experienced some heartbreak. Am
Yes.
I accurate in this
Yes.
assumption? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Tell me about dealing with heartbreak. For you, what's a good approach to dealing with
You
heartbreak?
know, it's different for me now at my age. When I was a freshman in college and I was younger, you didn't really know how to deal with it. There
Yeah.
wasn't really resources out there.
Yeah, you're just sad.
Yeah. You're sad or you're angry. I remember I had a buddy who had a heartbreak with a girl, and he came home and he was screaming at the top of his lungs that F you by CeeLo Green. He
Okay.
was singing that
Yeah,
song
yeah.
as loud as possible. So we all had different ways to cope. Mine was, I'm going to go work out like crazy, just distract myself.
Yeah.
Now I have several coaches in my life that I work with, and that enables you to dive deep and understand why didn't it work,
Yeah.
or why am I getting offended, or what are the red flags. And so that allows me to look at relationships differently, but also be able to work with whoever I'm in a relationship with.
Gotcha. So um what does diving deep look like when you have a fresh heartbreak and you're trying to figure out maybe what went wrong or
I think it's a level of being vulnerable and not understanding that, okay, she may have done some things that were at fault, but what did I do
yeah.
that messed up the relationship, or what did I do that led to the end of a relationship? For me, I feel it's always two-sided. It's not always on one person.
Yeah.
So being able to look at yourself and say, okay, here's some things I need to fix, but also being willing to go and work on yourself. So many times we jump into relationships and we both have demons and things we're dealing with, and we try to sweep it under the rug and pretend like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And it just builds up, and then it comes to a head and it explodes.
Yeah.
And so my thing is like, take time to work on yourself and understand when I'm at a healthy place where I can function, then I can jump into another relationship.
Yeah. That's true. And I think too when a relationship ends and you feel like it didn't end for any unhealthy reasons, like it just wasn't a good fit, it
Yeah.
wasn't compatible. It's so much easier to move on when you're like, I'm doing the work, I'm working on myself, and so I actually still love and care about that person, but yeah, we've hit an impasse, it's not working. It's so much easier than when you're not working on yourself, and so there's a lot of resentment,
Yeah.
there's a lot of anger and misplaced feelings. There's just I feel like it's almost impossible to fully heal when you're
Yeah.
not doing that kind of work.
No, it's true.
Tell me about becoming a trainer.
So funny story. I was playing rugby at Utah Valley. Played rugby over in South Africa, loved it. Played in Idaho, came and played it in college. And I had a buddy reach out to me. He's like, "Hey, I'm coaching this 7th grade A team. You want to come coach with me?" And so I jumped in, started coaching. Then I had a few parents like, "Hey, could you work with my kids?"
Yeah.
And so started off, and I had 2 little 7th graders, and started just YouTubing and understanding and this. And then that kind of started growing on its own, and then word of mouth, and that started to grow. And then I went and I got certified, and just kept doing that at a little gym. And then I had some buddies open a gym based on athletes. And so I went there and started their youth program, started training there. And that's kind of where I got my start and found my love. And I started going at it hard, and then went to another athlete gym. And then finally I said, why am I not doing this on my own? So branched out on my own, found like a warehouse just in Vineyard, and started training kids, age 8 up through college.
Yeah.
And started making classes and one-on-ones and designing programs, designing meal plans, and just studying and immersing myself. And so did that for a big chunk of time. I actually worked those 7th graders from 7th grade to their senior year of high school.
Oh, cool.
And then watched them graduate. And then it's been fun the past few years to go see them, those that are playing in college.
Yeah.
Go watch a game or go see how they do or reach out. And so that's kind of where I got into it. And it was kind of more of a, being in Utah, when people see me, their mind automatically goes to sports or some type of, athleticism.
This dude must play football or something.
Exactly. The funny thing is,
So you were more of a rugby guy though?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've had it before where I've been in Provo and I've had a kid come up to me, let's say BYU's playing the next day. Good luck in the game tomorrow. Or, hey, great game last night. And no, you learn just to smile and give the kid knuckles and stuff.
You're like,
and,
all right, I'll give you an autograph.
And I'm like, what do I need to sign?
Yeah.
But that's kind of what got me into it. And then I had gone to school and graduated in public relations, minored in marketing. And so about 2 years ago, I had a company reach out and they're like, hey, we're looking for someone in PR. We'd like to interview you. So I met with them and everything clicked.
Yeah.
And I was at a point where my decision was, do I go full into the career of PR, or do I build a gym and go all in on training?
Mm-hmm.
And so went back and forth, and decided to go with PR,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of phased out the next few weeks from training, and haven't trained someone since. And my buddy who I was going to partner with, we talk about, we have done so well in business and where we're at. Had we gone in with that gym, it would have been a different ball game, especially with the economy and different things happening. And I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't decided to make that shift.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of jumping into the water, getting a little bit wet, a lot of nerves.
Yeah.
Brand new things, but I've loved it.
That's cool, man. How do you balance when you're so sort of obsessed with fitness like you are in a good way? How do you balance like wanting to like look your absolute best and feel your best without crossing over into sort of vanity and arrogance and just being obsessed with your body and looking better than people or things like that?
So my thing is, I struggle a lot with body dysmorphia.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at myself, I'm like, I am not in shape. I have no muscle, everything. And so that helps me, because in my mind, I don't see that person. I'm not the type of guy at the gym who's going to be flexing in the mirror or doing all of that stuff or trying to show
You're
off.
working out in a hoodie.
Yeah. Hoodie, pump cover. Like, I'm in there to get a workout and get out and get home. I've removed myself from that social aspect. I'll talk to people, and being in the space that I am, I know a lot of people. But I'm not there 3-4 hours having a social fest. I'm in there to live, to work. I put the headphones in, and so that helps. The other thing is, like, if I'm going to go do cardio for 2 hours, I'm going to work or catch up on emails while I'm doing that cardio. And then so I'm balancing. I'm not just working out, I'm also getting work done. And so it's killing two birds with one stone.
Okay, nice.
But it's hard. It's hard because you look at someone bigger in the gym, and I'll find myself falling in that trap where there'll be a kid, tiny kid, flexing and this, and I'll be like, okay, let me take this off and do some triceps or some
when
curls.
You see a guy like me that's just trying to kind of look at his little baby pump, Well,
and the problem is, it's the fitness culture in Utah is huge. And so you have all these kids who, they all wear the wife beater, they all have a gold chain, and they all, they all look the same. They sit there and they do bicep curls for hours, and they don't, my thing I struggle with is, I'm like, are you even doing the right exercises? Or, or the other end, you'll have people that are completely out of shape, that are lifting like crazy. I'm like, fix your diet, do some cardio. Like, you don't need to throw around 500 on the bench. I'm like, you can bench 500, but what does that actually do for you? That doesn't dictate, whether you're healthy or not. It's just you showing off in the gym.
You're just a good weightlifter.
Right.
So, okay, maybe some advice for me. What do you say to someone like me that has a really hard time being really consistent with the gym? Like, I'll have good patterns where I go 4 or 5 times a week. My problem is I have to work really, really hard for pretty small results, just my body type, and it's not a huge priority where I'm like, well, I'm going to consume crazy amounts of protein and just eat chicken and rice. Like, I want to have a pretty balanced life, and I want to just work out when I have time. But then, I'll go 3 or 4 weeks and I'm like, frick, man, I've been so busy, I haven't made it a priority. What's just some good advice for me?
I think it's a balancing act, because sometimes we can go too much, but also we have to be comfortable and willing to, let's say I show up to the gym and I'm sitting in the parking lot and I don't feel it. It's okay to go home. It's okay to say no. But the other things is, I tell people, so I have a personal trainer, and I usually lift with the buddy, because now I have 2 things that force me to go.
The buddy helps a lot.
Because I know I have someone there waiting, and I'm like, you better get to the gym. But also, when you get there, if you don't feel like lifting weights, jump on the bike, go sit in the sauna, go stretch. There's always things that you can do that work for your body that doesn't have to be taxing.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I sometimes, if you're tired or you're like, dude, throwing around some heavy weights sounds so horrible right now, but I always love the sauna. I always love shooting some hoops. Like, that's a good point. Like, just getting in the gym and doing something. I've even had days where I've gone to the gym, stretched, hit the sauna, and went home.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But it also gives you momentum for the next day.
And I'm a big person. I'm a big proponent of, if I say something, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be there. I have a group. We've played basketball just up the road from here for 9 years. We've played Saturday morning, 6 a.m. That's the time. And, with this traveling schedule I'm on, I remember I got back from Washington, D.C. about 2:30 in the morning. We were stuck in Denver, delays.
Yeah.
We finally landed. I walk into the house at 2:30, and I'm like, I have to be there at 5 to set up.
Yeah.
And so laid down, quick nap, made it there, played basketball for 2 hours,
Yeah.
went to the gym for an hour and a half,
Yeah.
went to the grocery store, came home and passed out. But as tired as I was, it's like, if I said I'm going to be there,
Yeah.
unless I'm sick and actually can't, I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
And so that's my thing with the gym when I know I have a trainer, because I've committed, I've paid. I'm like, so that means I'm going to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Dude, one of your posts I wanted to talk about, you wrote a letter to your 14-year-old self. Would you mind reading that for us?
Yes, you want me to read the whole letter?
I'd love to hear it. It's funny. I started it and I was like, I don't want to finish it because I want to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Okay.
And first, maybe what inspired you to write this?
So I went out to. I'm in a men's coaching group.
Okay.
And every 3 months we have an activity where we get together, and it's 50 guys, 50 of my closest friends now. And a lot of it is working on your inner self, breath work, meditation. This past weekend, so let me set the stage. When I was 14, I had severe anger issues. And so I went to a wilderness therapy camp called Red Cliff Ascent, which is based in southern Utah. And with that, and that was a whole different, it literally was, your parents sign you over, you can run away, they won't come and get you.
Did your parents say like, hey, you're enough, we're sending you?
It was, I was violent to the point where it's like, they didn't know what to do. They're like, this is the next best option.
You were getting in fights?
So getting in fights, physical with my siblings, my family. And I went through puberty almost in the 3rd grade. So I've always been bigger and stronger than everybody.
Yeah.
And so when I get angry,
I've never been bigger or stronger.
It scared a lot of people. Yeah. We'll get you there.
Okay.
We'll get you there.
Good.
And so it made a lot of people nervous.
Yeah.
And I remember the last straw was I got angry at my mom for something, and she's had like the Tourette's and the eyes issues, and I threw an apple at her, and it almost hit her in the face, and they're like, okay, this is enough. And so I remember my dad, I jumped in the back of the Acura, and we drove down to southern Utah, and with that, they basically, you get food every 2 weeks. You have to make your own fires. If you don't make fire, you don't eat. If you run out of food, you're out of food.
So you're just like camping?
So you're camping. Yeah. You hike with a group every like 8 to 10 miles every day and set up camp. It could be a few days. The counselor who's watching you, they rotate every week or so. And then you run out of clothes, and then you met with a counselor once a week.
Okay.
And you did some coursework and different things. I was the youngest to ever go to the thing. I was 14. A lot of people were 18 and above, and they were brought in handcuffs. And they were, being phased off drugs and different things. And so, I got frostbite on 2 toes. Oh, wow. We drink water from like a cow trough to find water. And so where this men's group was in the same area.
Okay.
And it's the first time I had been back there. And the whole weekend, they're like, what's wrong with you? Like we did a hike and we did ice baths afterwards. And I've cold plunged before, but the ice baths that they brought were cow troughs. And so I'm looking at the same nature, the same smells, the same sights. There's a cow trough with water. And, I was like, this is miserable. I'm terrible, everything. And because I was experiencing that same environment.
Yeah. Was it a traumatic thing for you, or was it pretty revolutionary?
I think it was both.
Yeah.
I think it started. And then we went through this process, a lot of working on, our inner selves. And we dove into that inner child work.
Yeah.
And so our last night, they asked us to write a letter either to our father, our mother, or our inner child. And so my letter I wrote to that kid at that camp.
Okay.
Looking back, because where we were staying was 18 miles from where that kid was. It was 17 years ago that I was there.
Yeah.
And so that's the context of
cool.
where that letter came from. So let me pull it up and read it. Let's see. So last Saturday night, I wrote a letter to my 14-year-old self, the boy who spent those long, tough days alone at wilderness therapy camp. Looking back, I wished I could have stepped through time, found that boy sitting there with his fears, his pain, and his confusion, and just sat with him. I would have looked at him in the eyes and placed a hand on his shoulder and told him what he desperately needed to hear, that you are already enough. I would have apologized to him, not just for the pain he felt, but for the ways I, even as his future self, carried that pain forward, for the times he didn't get the apologies he deserved, and for the moments when he felt abandoned, misunderstood, and alone. I would have told him how sorry I was for the burdens he carried that weren't his to bear, and for the love he didn't receive from those who should have been there. I would have told him that he survived, and not just survived, he thrived. He went on to grow into a man who loves deeply, who believes in others, and who shows up when it's hard. I would have told him that his strength wasn't just holding it together, but in being willing to feel, to endure, and to grow. That same strength led him to become someone others could lean on, someone who loves his people fiercely and who chooses every day to want more, to be more. I would have, let's see. There's a song that echoes this sentiment with the words that felt like they were written for him, for me, and maybe others too. It sings, bring your intensity, bring your shame, bring all of yourself to me. I have the space. Bring your beauty and bring your love. Bring all of yourself to me. You are already enough. I would have let those lyrics wash over that 14-year-old boy, letting him know it was okay to bring it all. The pain, the beauty, the intensity, and the love. There was space for it. There had always been. And he didn't need to be anything other than who he was. So here's to that boy who survived the wilderness nights, and to the man he grew into. Here's to embracing the journey, even the painful parts, and loving yourself through every step. Here's to trusting that you are already enough and always have been. To my 14-year-old self, thank you for your courage. Thank you for standing firm, even when the world felt unsteady. Thank you for becoming the man I am today. I'm proud of you and I love you. And then I just dropped a note. To anyone who feels like that lost teenager, just know you are already enough.
Oh,
And
that's
so
cool, man.
wrote that letter and then threw it into a fire.
Oh, that's cool. Was it a pretty emotional experience writing that?
It was. Part of the things is I had gone through all this and I hadn't told any of the 50 people that I was there with. And so you could read your letter or you could just throw it in the fire. Yeah. And my entire time I was like, I'm just gonna throw it in the fire. I'm not gonna talk.
Yeah.
And I stepped up and I went to throw it and I said, I need to share this experience. And so I shared it, and it's such a eye-opening experience because it clicked for all the guys. And I had several guys who, since I've been back, have apologized because they're like, oh, we thought you were just wussing out. We didn't want to do the ice bath or, just being standoffish, but they didn't understand what I was experiencing over the weekend.
Yeah.
And so this brought them into my experience.
That's cool, man. That's I love the part of just saying like you're enough and you always have been.
Yeah.
I love do you know who John Bellion is?
Mm-hmm.
I love he has this line in the song Stupid Deep where he says, what if who I hoped to be was always me? And what if the love I fought to feel was always free?
Yeah.
Like such a cool thought.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we get we get this thought in our head that we're not enough.
Yeah.
Or that what does that really mean when you say you're not enough? It kind of means that you're worthless.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy to feel worthless when, like you said, maybe you feel like people have abandoned you or haven't given you the love you deserved or haven't shown you the respect you deserve or haven't apologized when they should have. Yeah. So yeah, how do you get to that place having gone through things like that where you're like, you realize whatever you are, whatever you always were was always enough?
It takes work and being willing to invest in yourself. I love my coaching group. I've been in it for 4 months. It is not cheap, but the work and what I've received from it is worth every penny.
Yeah.
Because it forces you to go deeper than you want to.
Yeah.
But also you have 49 other guys around you that are going through the same things. And I remember our first ever event, one of the ways that he started it was we drove down to Moab. We were put into different groups in the car. And these are guys we've never met, never talked to. In fact, one of the guys in the car, one of my closest friends today, but his nickname is KKK.
Okay.
And me and him are polar opposites.
Yeah.
But I talk to this man every day. He's a brother to me. And so we got down there and we made a giant circle. And the guy running the event, he would say, how many of you have ever experienced depression? Step into the circle. How many of you ever lost a parent, step into the circle? How many of you been to jail, had a bad relationship, or felt alone? And so you have these 50 dudes who've never met, who are getting as vulnerable as they could be, stepping into the circle, stepping out. You know, and then he even went to the point of, how many of you in the past 6 weeks have had suicidal thoughts?
Oh, wow.
And when you see a room of brothers, sons, dads, businessmen, the majority stepping into that circle and stepping out, it really helps you understand that the person from the outside could look perfect on social media, but everyone is battling something.
Yeah.
And so being able to be in a room where you can lean on this person and he can lean on this person, it allows you to work on yourself and realize, wait a second, I'm just like every other person.
Yeah.
No humans are perfect. We're all dealing with something.
And we're all just a little bit broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's fine.
Yeah. And that's the problem, is our society teaches us, like, we can't show weakness, especially as a man.
Yeah.
You can't cry. You have to be tough. You have to
I have to cry.
be the strong guy.
If I don't cry, I'm in a dark spot.
Well, no, and it's,
Are you one to easily cry?
I haven't been.
Yeah.
And in fact, this experience with this coaching group was so hard because there's a kid in our group who's 19. I coached him his 7th grade year through his senior year of high school. And one thing I'll never let my players see is weakness. And so for me to be vulnerable and show emotion with one of the kids that I coached there, you know, and with him, I've had to understand that I'm not his coach anymore.
Yeah.
You know, we're friends. I consider him a brother. That was tough at first. But when these become your brothers, emotions don't matter.
Yeah.
In fact, by the end of the weekend, I was so tired of crying. I got back and had to fly out to Miami for a week for work, and my eyes were red and everything. And I'm like, and then the littlest thing would start you crying, and I'm like, I'm so done freaking crying.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if you've been there before, but one of the things we did is the rope swing in Moab. And it's a 400-foot drop.
Yeah.
And so one of the things with that was you were going to get rid of a bad habit, jump. And when you came up, you were a new person. And I hate heights.
Yeah.
And it is the closest to death that I have ever been.
Yeah.
But I did a full send. And so there's things that I've come out of my comfort zone. I think things that I'm doing physical, things that I'm doing emotionally and mentally. And so that's the biggest thing. I'm like, it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
And it's okay to show emotion.
Yeah. So in these men groups, it sounds like you've gotten a little bit more comfortable with your emotions and showing that vulnerable side. Has that translated over to feeling that same level of comfort around women? Like, is it harder to cry around girls?
It's not. And the thing that's been interesting is all of the guys in the group who are married, when I've met their wives or spouses, I'm as close with them as I am with the husbands. It's just one big family.
Yeah.
I think what it does is it enables you to understand that both of you may be going through something, and it's okay to be open. It's okay to tell her, hey, I had a rough day at work today. I may not be myself for a little bit. Give me a little bit of time, and then I'll be back to myself.
Yeah.
Whereas before, our tendency is just to shut off and be quiet and not communicate.
Yeah.
And so it enables you to communicate much better. One of the things I love is, outside of our planned coaching group trips, other trips that we go on, we are not allowed to go on trips just the guys. You have to take girlfriends, wives with you and have them be a part of the experience, because you're already gone for those 4 days from them. And so you take them with you, and then you come back and you share, here's the work I'm doing, and then you do that work together as a couple.
That's cool. I feel like when you go to a friend or a loved one and you're tearing up or you start crying, I feel like you're almost giving them a gift, because you're saying, like, I'm so comfortable around you. I care about your space and your response that I'm willing to let down my walls in front of you. Like, for me, if any friend comes to me and is crying, like, the last thing I would feel would be like, oh, what's your problem? Like, you're being so weak right now. It's no, I'm like, oh man, thank you so much for thinking of me and letting me into your world.
Yeah.
You know? So you were adopted at 3 weeks. Did you ever have a chance to know anything about your parents or meet them?
So funny story. I actually am planning to, in the next 3 to 4 weeks, go and meet my birth mom for the first time. And I'm actually going to be doing a podcast with her.
Oh, wow.
And that whole experience
So you've already communicated with her?
I've been communicating with her.
Is she in Maryland?
She is actually now in High Point, North Carolina.
Okay.
And so we're going to fly out there. And I said, we're going to sit down. We're just going to talk.
Yeah.
It's going to be a podcast episode. I'm not going to edit or filter anything.
Yeah.
Whatever emotions are there are there. And it's actually interesting. I went and did a session with a spiritual coach a few days ago. And you lay there and you just close your eyes and she reads your energy. And she's, some people would say a medium to connect to the other side. And the thing that was interesting is one of the messages she got was from my birth grandmother, who was telling me, when you go and meet your birth mom, don't be hard on her. Go easy.
Yeah.
And you know, some people, they don't believe in that stuff. And I was like, so much of what was being read through my energy and everything was based off what I had planned or what I have just experienced. And so that's going to be an interesting, I'm flying my parents with me and one of my good friends. And so it's going to be an experience of a lifetime.
It's going to be amazing.
But, you know, I'm also at the point in my age where I'm like, I also want to know about, you know, what's the medical history of my family?
Yeah.
Like, what do I avoid? What should I watch for? What runs in the family? Because I have no clue on any of that.
Yeah. Are you, most of these years before you got in touch with her, had you harbored resentment towards her? What was your feelings towards her?
So when I was 18, my mom found my birth mom. And she added me on Facebook, sent her my number.
Yeah.
It's interesting. She actually called. I didn't answer. So we've never talked on the phone.
Yeah.
It's always been text or Facebook Messenger. But really just haven't really looked at it at all. And what kind of sparked this for me was I was working out, and if you can see, this finger's crooked. And so I went to a doctor, and he said, it's basically like trigger finger. And he said, but with you...
You've been gaming too much?
Well, so here's the crazy thing. So texting and typing.
Really?
And so what he said was, and there's no pain in it, it's just stiff. But what he said is it's genetic.
Oh, interesting.
And so that got me, I'm like, well, if this is genetic, what else could be coming up?
Yeah, you might have stiff
in my
toes
life?
too.
I hope not. Let's hope not, because this is already, I mean, the only thing it affects is grip strength.
Right.
But it just, you know, it's weird when you're,
Yeah.
every picture I used to do the peace sign, and now I got to go here because this one is completely messed up. And so that's what kind of sparked the idea. And so I reached out to her, and I had just started my podcast, and I said, I'm just going to send it and see. And she was okay with it.
Yeah.
And here's some dates that worked. And so it's just buying the tickets and doing a full send.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful, man. I look forward to watching that. What about your dad? Is there any...
So I have a picture of him, and that's all I know. So I'm sure in that conversation, that's going to come up. And I have some birth siblings. I have a full brother, and then I have some step siblings.
Cool. Wow. That's crazy. Tell me about your relationship with God and your faith. So
my faith is one of the most important aspects of my life. It's the value system I have. I always tell people, I say, when I die and when I meet God, I want him to recognize my voice by the conversations I've had with him here on earth.
I like that.
One of the things that I found, especially being in Utah, is so many people get offended by people. And that's how they view faith. They view religion. And I'm like, these are imperfect people who are doing their best. They say stuff we disagree with. They do things we disagree with. But I'm like, my relationship is with God and with Jesus. And that, you know, what other people may say, that's them. And, you know, I have to understand they're not perfect. And so my big thing has always been, like, before a sporting match, I'll pray and different things that way. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. And so that's just how I've grown. I've learned in the past few years to love other religions. A lot of times I find ourselves, you know, this is the only true religion, so get rid of all the others. And I'm like, they all have good. They all, I mean, when you look at someone who's Muslim, I'm like, in the LDS faith, we'll fast for a day, and it's a struggle. And I'm like, if you see how long that Muslims have to fast for and their dedication to not eating certain things and different things, there's so many beautiful aspects of different religions that we can take and we can learn from, rather than focusing on what separates us.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. My buddy, this was so cool. It's funny. He actually got some flack on social media for it by some like Christian zealots. But my buddy is a Christian artist, and he went to Pakistan on business and um, was hanging out with their business partners that were Pakistanis, and they're all Muslim,
Mm-hmm.
and they would do like these worship nights together where they would sing their worship songs to Muhammad, and he would sing some of his Christian songs, and they would just kind of be together. And it was so cool to see that harmony, because you rarely see that
Yeah.
with Christians and Muslims. But it's funny, in the comments he got absolutely flamed by by people that are I think just missing the bigger picture
Yeah.
there.
Well, and I'll be honest, I've been ignorant before. I remember right before the pandemic, I had always been uncomfortable around like Muslims in the turbans,
Mm-hmm.
especially after 9/11 traveling.
Yeah.
You see them on a plane, I'd get uneasy. And I remember right before the pandemic, I took my dad to India. We went to see the Taj Mahal.
Mm-hmm.
And flying back, I was seated next to two guys in turbans.
Mm-hmm.
And when we landed, they shook hands and everything. They were the nicest
Yeah.
people I had ever met. And I'm like, why am I nervous or uncomfortable? These are normal people.
Right.
And so that was an eye opener for me, and just realizing that everyone may look different, may act different, may be different, but we're more alike than we are different.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, so much of it is just exposure.
Yeah.
Like if you saw somebody like a tribesman from Africa, like walking around in a loincloth
Yeah.
and like animal skin,
Yeah. You're gonna look.
war paint,
Mhm.
like, yeah, you'd be freaked out.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that exposure. But if you go hang out with them for months, all of a sudden,
Then you're comfortable. Things are normal.
Yeah.
I mean, when I lived in Ghana, we ate cat, we ate dog, and
Mhm.
you wouldn't dare do that here.
Right. Right.
But it was part of the culture.
Yeah. How is cat?
So the hard thing is when you're a foreigner, they want to give you the best part.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they give you the head.
Okay.
And the other thing is they don't defer
Oh.
the animals.
Okay.
And that is tough
Yeah.
because you're eating it, you're picking the hairs out of your
Yeah.
teeth and
What's
stuff.
what's the way they prepare it? Is it like in a
it's
stew?
like in a soup.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I've had some pig that was not, there was still hair on it from in Brazil. They would have some pig stew that was hairier than I appreciate.
Many a times in Africa, even the cowhide
Hmm.
would still have stuff on it.
Yeah.
And you learn to, and that's the hard thing is those cultures, if you don't accept the food, it's offensive
Right.
or you don't eat it.
Yeah.
And so you learn to stomach it up and eat
Right.
it. And
What was the weirdest thing you had, you think?
probably cat.
Yeah.
Like there was a giant rat called grass cutter, but it's not like eating a cat and then you learn to understand that, hey, these are not house pets.
Right. These are
These,
wild
these are
animals.
things that they're going to eat
Yeah.
and enjoy. But yeah, and then, it's not weird, but like fish with all the bones in it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
just the little things like that. But also the concept of eating with your hands.
Right.
You're at a table with 6 people, you're all putting your hand in the same bowl,
Mm-hmm.
stuff's going back in it and stuff. And so
Yeah.
it's also learning to be comfortable with someone didn't wash their hands after the bathroom.
Right.
Hope this soup has enough spice.
Yeah. Did you ever get super sick?
Never got sick, never got malaria. No, in fact, mainly when I get sick, it's stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've been, for me, I go hard, and then I crash.
Uh-huh.
And then I have to reset and regroup. But other than that, that's the biggest thing. I think my biggest headache is the past year I've had nonstop hiccups.
Oh, really?
I'll get hiccup fits.
What causes hiccups?
Honestly, there's certain work things that I talk about and it will start.
Really?
And so I think it's a stress mechanism our
Interesting.
body has started to do, but it does not go away
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah. And you're probably a difficult person to scare, which is
Uh-huh. And they've tried.
yeah.
I've had one of my buddies smack the crap out of the back of my head, and I'm like, that did not do the trick whatsoever. Lay down upside down, like all sorts of things, but it's just, I just have to let it pass.
Wow, that's funny. Do you know much about your like ethnic lineage, or are you gonna?
So we did that, the DNA testing,
Uh-huh.
and so I know it's West Africa,
Mhm.
Nigeria area, But that's just one of those little swab DNA
Right,
tests that they've done.
So when you went back to Ghana, which is more West Africa than Zimbabwe, was there a part of you that felt like, man, I'm kind of at home, or were you just kind of like?
So traveling, I knew I was more comfortable than the other missionaries that it was their first time going, and it's going to be different. It's going to smell different, but nothing. Living there with my parents is different than going as a missionary because you're once amongst the people.
Yeah,
like you're getting your water from a well. We didn't have electricity 24/7. The apartments weren't the best. They weren't the safest.
Yeah.
So it was different. You're living in a third world country, and you realize real quick when you land that, hey, I'm here, and either you're gonna have to love it and dive in, or it's gonna be a miserable 2-year experience.
Yeah. What's a good way for you to summarize? I feel like so many people don't really know much about Africa. They just hear crazy things, and it's such a big.
They watch National Geographic.
Yeah, and it's such a big continent with a lot of countries, and there are countries way worse off than others where there's famine and there's genocide and there's child soldiers and stuff. But like for you, how do you get across to people kind of what Africa's really like?
So, and the crazy thing is, like, if I take Ghana, I was based out in the villages, but you drive 3-4 hours and you're at an Apple store, a KFC, a McDonald's. Like, there is parts of Africa that look just like United States.
Yeah.
South Africa looks like America. I mean, the malls are 7 stories. They have wave machines inside the malls. They have all of that. And then you drive and then you're in villages.
Yeah.
And so it's not a place where you have like elephants and giraffes and lions running around. Africa's a beautiful country. It's a country that's gone through a lot.
Yeah.
And they are faithful people. So it's just understanding that it's not all what you see on TV.
Did you ever teach people that were more tribal?
So my last area, yes.
What's it like? Are they polytheistic usually? Are they?
So the hard thing about Africa is so many people start churches to make money.
Okay.
So there are hundreds of different churches and denominations, usually Christian based. But Jehovah's Witness is big.
Yeah.
And Muslim is the other big one.
Okay. So they're used to Christianity, Islam, but out there, out in the sticks and the villages and stuff, what is their belief system usually? Do you know?
From what I experienced, was either Christian or it was they really didn't have much to go off of. It's not a thing where you may be in parts of, let's say, like Egypt or something where it's based off different gods and different teachings that way. But from my experience, they either didn't know or they knew a little bit, or they had like a Bible,
right?
Or missionaries had stopped by sometime before and said something to them. So for me, I was blessed. The last area I served in my mission, I was there for 11 and a half months.
Oh, wow.
And so I spent a lot of time there. And I basically became one of the people.
Yeah. That's cool, man. So you speak Ghanaian, is it?
So,
is it French?
So they have the local languages are Tree, Ewe, Ga, Fanti. You have Pidgin English, and then a little bit of Arabic.
Okay. So what did you mostly teach in?
So it was English.
Okay.
It was English, but I started to pick up the languages the more that I was there. And I'm a big believer. Anyone who reads the Bible, Saul, who becomes Paul, one of the things Paul, as he teaches the people and he goes from city to city, he said, to the Jews, I became a Jew. To the weak, I became weak. Really immersing yourself in the culture rather than trying to bring them to me.
Right.
How do I reach them? If you look when Paul would teach, he would use words of the poets in those local cities that he was in because he knew that resonated with the people.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I really tried to emphasize on.
Yeah, that's cool. Dude, I have a quote I wanted to read to you and hear your thoughts. It's by Frank Lloyd Wright, and he said, "The longer I live, the more beautiful life becomes. If you foolishly ignore beauty, you will soon find yourself without it. Your life will be impoverished, but if you invest in beauty, it will remain with you all the days of your life."
Well, I got to put that down. who is that by?
So that's Frank Lloyd Wright.
Okay. Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah, I'll read it one more time. He says, "The longer I live, the more beautiful life becomes. If you foolishly ignore beauty, you will soon find yourself without it. your life will be impoverished. But if you invest in beauty, it will remain with you all the days of your life.
I love that.
Yes. What does that mean to you? The idea of investing in beauty and finding importance in beauty and surrounding yourself with beauty.
So I think in the society we live in, when we hear the word beauty, we instantly go to material.
Mm-hmm.
We go to our looks. We go to what do we have. We go to that. But I think what he's talking about, that beauty is inside.
Uh-huh.
Invest in yourself, but surround yourself with people that are like-minded and people that impact you. And I think when you invest in that and you invest in yourself, something beautiful happens because your authentic self is there.
Yeah.
And you're with people who are also authentic. Because my biggest thing is the people in my life have to be able to celebrate with me, but also call me out.
Mm-hmm.
If I've told them, hey, this is my goal and I'm not working towards it, or I slip up, or I'm, not doing what I should in the relationship, they're comfortable enough to call me on that and have me come into integrity.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's huge. And that's the thing I think it means by surround yourself with beauty. Is surround yourself with your tribe, your people.
With beautiful humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I read this book by Jordan Peterson where he talks about how important it is to, if you have a workspace that you're at every day, he's like, it's actually really important for your brain chemistry to have that space be beautiful.
Yeah.
And to surround yourself with art that you like and set pieces that you enjoy. Because if it's something you're doing every single day, it's not trivial.
Yeah.
And so you should enjoy it, and you should surround yourself with beauty. He was essentially saying, and you'll be more productive and you'll be more energetic. And I thought, what a cool idea that even something as simple as making sure the office you're in every day is really beautiful and aesthetically pleasing to you. It's really cool.
Yeah. I'm moving in the next 3 weeks to a new house. And one of the things that I've decided is all my hodgepodge stuff that I had for college and everything, I'm tossing it. I'm buying new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting themes in the house. Like, this is going to not just be a house, it's going to be a home.
Yeah.
A place where I can escape from work and I can be comfortable. I can have friends come over and they feel at home, and family can visit and feel at home. It's not just, a place where it's a roof over my head, but it's actually a home.
Yeah. That's cool. So through all this, this inner work that you've done in these men's groups and these coaching, what do you feel like is the best way to deal with just depression? Like, it's one thing to have these systems in place where you have a coach or you have a therapist and you kind of know the steps, but for you personally, when you're in a dark spot, maybe you've lost someone or just you've experienced a failure in your life, like how do you deal with that inner pain?
The first step is learning it's okay to ask for help. I have several friends that deal with depression, several that have been suicidal, and it's just about, I could go and visit them and sit there and not say a word.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm present with them. I'm there with them. I've gone to dinner at midnight with a buddy who just wanted to talk, and he was struggling, and we talked through that. And so it's holding space for people that are going through that. And if you're going through that, is reach out to someone. It doesn't matter whether it's, a trained professional or just a friend, someone to talk.
Yeah.
Because in that conversations, they may know of someone that could get you the help that you need.
Mm-hmm.
But also as a friend, it's learning to reach out to you. Who haven't I talked to in a while? Who do I need to reach out? Because even a simple text could help someone's day.
Yeah.
And so, like, I have an alarm set where every morning at 7 a.m. I send 2 gratitude texts, just 2 random people.
Just saying you're grateful for their friendship.
Grateful for their friendship.
Yeah.
Anything along the lines of that.
And do you plan who it is or just who you're feeling?
Who I'm feeling. Moment? I wake up and I think, okay, who haven't I talked to? Who could use a text and everything.
I really like that.
I have a buddy who's dealing with a lot of demons in his life, and I send him a text every morning at 7:30.
Mm-hmm.
And I've, for 2 months straight, every single morning I say, whether it's a quote, whether it's a video, no matter what it was, whether it's a story or a poem, something.
Yeah.
So when he started his day, he could wake up and he could see it.
Yeah, I like that. How important is gratitude for you?
So if we look at prayer, it's easy to pray when we need something, but we forget to pray when it's just a thank you.
Yeah.
I woke up today, thank you. I have running water. I have electricity. I have a roof over my head. I have a computer in my hand. I mean, there's so many things that we could be grateful, and we forget to show gratitude.
Yeah.
And so for me, the time I've spent in so many third world countries, I'm like, how can I not be grateful?
Yeah.
I was with a buddy in Provo, lives in my mind, a disgusting house. It smells this. And then I was talking to him afterwards, and I'm like, in hindsight, though, you have a roof over your head. You have a bed you can lay on at night, and you have water that you can bath. And then so it was like, yes, this sucks, and it's a terrible state, but the alternative is way worse.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I got to pull myself because I go into that first world mode, and you start to get all upset and picky and everything. And I'm like, why am I grateful for what I have? I in my space, in my work, I've flown on private jets. I've been with celebrities, everything, and people look at me and they say, why don't you drive a sports car or this? I drive a Kia, and I'm like, I'm not a car person. It gets me from A to B.
Yeah.
It's a material thing that means nothing to me.
Yeah.
I'm not the person who's gonna spend all this money on the car because I would rather go and spend that money to go travel with family, with friends, go enjoy a meal than have it all dumped into a vehicle that really just sits when I'm traveling.
Right.
It sits and goes nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Okay, man, I like to, at the end of my podcast, I like to kind of switch roles and see if you have any questions for me. And since you're a podcaster, you'll maybe be better than some people.
Okay.
Some people just draw a blank. But yeah, and I know you don't know me from Adam, but yeah, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I think the first question I would ask you is, what does it mean for you to be authentic?
First of all, I think being authentic is just like most things in life. It's sort of an evolution, right? Because to be authentic, you have to kind of figure out who you are first. And when you're young, a lot of times you feel like you're being authentic, but you don't really have yourself figured out yet.
Yeah.
You're still figuring out what you're passionate about and what you believe and your politics and your religion and your philosophies on things. And so I think as you get older and your thoughts become more organized, I think for myself, being authentic is, I don't know, it manifests itself in a lot of areas of life. There's like being spiritually authentic, which, sometimes is hard because in a church culture, in a religious culture, people get used to certain types of rhetoric, and people get used to just certain ways of doing things. And not that it's bad, but it can come off inauthentic, right? And so for me, I try to not just copy and paste things. If I'm giving a talk in church, I try not to follow what feels like a very formulaic way of speaking.
Yeah.
If I'm giving a comment in Sunday school, I try to really have it be not what I think people want to hear, but just an authentic thought I want to share, And then there's being authentic with, your relationships with your friends, with a girlfriend, with your parents. But I think all of that is exponentially more difficult if you're not authentic with yourself, which is probably the hardest of all. Like for me, it's easy to be vulnerable and share with people.
Yeah.
But to really look myself in the mirror and face certain things can be pretty difficult.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think I try to pride myself in being an authentic human, but I think we all fall short at times because we want to impress, we want to sound smart, we want to sound interesting. And sometimes our fear is that our normal, like, default setting is not interesting or not especially smart or charismatic or charming or whatever. And so I think for me, the thing I care about the most with authenticity is I'm such a word guy. I'm a writer, and I care a lot about the power of words. And so for me, I want to be conscious to not just spew out phrases that I've kind of memorized. When people ask me things, I want it to be an authentic response.
Yeah.
I want it to not just be, oh, when people ask me how I am, I usually say, oh, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like I don't even know English. I've just memorized, oh, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah.
And I really don't want to become a robot. You know, it's so easy to go through life and just, I don't know, say the things you've always said.
Get set in your ways, and it's just.
And you know, it's funny because on the other hand, I love how unique people are and how everyone kind of has their own little sayings and way they phrase things and words they use more than other people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want the phrases I use and the words I use, like I want there to be more of them.
Yeah.
And I want to sound original in the things I say. But who knows how well I do.
No, I love that. I love that. I think my only other question for you would be, I'm always curious to ask people, no one knows when our time on earth is done or it's checkout time. And so how do you want people to remember you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, let's say, you know, I go in and the doctor's like, yeah, you got a week, pal. You know, I don't really have, if I have a week, I don't really have time to like build a legacy,
Yeah.
you know? So what I would hope at that stage is that people just remember me as a friend, you know, as someone that they can go to with anything at any time. Like I love being, I'm very much a night person for better or worse. And I remember my sister had like gallstones or something, but you know, they didn't know what it was at first. So she just had like incredible pain at like 2 a.m. one night, and she has 3 little kids, and my brother-in-law calls me, and I'm just like reading in bed. And so he calls me and I like answer on the first ring. I'm like, hey man, what's up? It's like 2:30.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, hey dude, could you come to the hospital and help watch the kids and stuff? And I love being able to be that guy.
Yeah.
You know, and there's, you know, some cons to being an insomniac, but yeah, I don't know. I would love to be remembered as somebody that's just someone that people feel comfortable talking to and asking for help. Like, I never want to be a guy that people are like intimidated to talk to or worried about asking for a favor or worried that they can't share something hard with me. You know, I want to be a soft landing ground for people. And I think I do a pretty good job of it, but I think the struggle and the balance is in doing that all the time, you know, because it's harder to do that when you're going through your own stuff and when you're in your head and you're in a mood, you know, like you ever find yourself in a bad mood and you're just like, dude, what is my problem?
Yeah.
Like, I've been so unhelpful to society today because of my stupid little problem. You know, it almost puts me in a bad mood. My bad mood.
No, that I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And it's being able to snap yourself out of it. And because some days it's like, why?
Yeah. What about you? What do you hope to leave behind?
My biggest thing is I want people to remember me that I gave more than I took. And whether that's my time, my heart, my resource, whatever it is, I love when I live to just give and to serve.
Yeah. I love what you said in your letter to yourself about loving deeply.
Yeah.
I think at the end of your life, like, that could be on your tombstone. Like, Jeffrey Mann loves deeply. Like, what else is there?
Yeah.
You know, and everything else, all your accomplishments can almost be encapsulated in that sentence, you know, like consider the opposite. Jeffrey Mann loved shallowly, or Jeffrey Mann barely loved, or he loved a little when he had time.
Yeah. Nothing sits the same,
you know? So I love that. So yeah, I think if that's literally your only goal and focus is to love deeply, I think you'll accomplish a ton and leave behind an enormous legacy.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, Jeffrey, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's been an awesome convo.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. I honestly, it's funny. In this network with my producer and stuff, there's like 8 or 9 podcasts. And so there's always podcasts I want to listen to and don't get to, but I really look forward to watching that episode with you and your mom.
Of course.
That sounds awesome.
It's going to be exciting.
That's beautiful. Well, I'll add all your YouTube and your podcast links in the bio, so the show notes so people can see. But
Perfect.
Yeah, appreciate you, brother.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
man.
I appreciate it, brother.
Of course.
Thank
man.
you.
Yep. All right.